Greetings all, praise the King. Welcome to Eyewitness, where we reason to discover truth. There are certain people that will spend their time trying to convince us of that which is untrue. Today, we're speaking some more about distancing and how it relates to branding. Distancing is the appearance or making the appearance of opposition. You know, the Babylon controls the world. They have their forces at the top. Let's call them the rats that use the tools underneath them to rule over others. And they'd like you to believe that there's a just system, that there's balance. And they engage in a practice, it's called fakery, to persuade others of this. Sometimes they call justice. They realize that people don't serve them well if they don't have faith in what they do. So they look to provide a kind of hope, and that becomes the engine that drives people to serve and worship the beast. If we're in a world where people see that there's no justice, people rebel. They don't serve that order well. This is what they call the process, and sometimes they call the rule of law, that enables them to take advantage of populations. They have to fool people to thinking that people have a stake. And that somehow, people are part of something bigger than themselves, and they contribute to it, that the outcome will also provide for them. Like I said, the basis of what you see, how business, economics, people, social societies function, is on this thing they call the rule of law. Now this relates because, as we stated, they have to provide for the appearance of justice to keep people motivated. And so one core example would be of distancing would be the way this is set up, where you have the system with judges, lawyers, on both sides, prosecutorial as well as defending, and the jury. And you've got to make the appearance that these folks are separate, that they're not on the same team, that the judge is neutral in their decision. If people were aware that the judges are really working with the state, and the state is choosing the juries, they wouldn't believe in this system. So they're looking for people's participation because people have faith in this process. You also have your what they call politics. You have your legislation, and they like you to believe that the legislation is also separate from the other branches, and of course the judicial. You see? So, what they're doing now, and we've spoke some about the staging, is using these faces to portray this separation of powers, so as, let's say, the model that we'll use is the pedophile. The pedophile is now vetoing the bill to fund the military. You see, so this tool is used to make the appearance not only that the pedophile is against the military, but that there's another force that's overriding the veto that's for the military. Now, we know the pedophile's been used as the kind of body bag to take the hit for the team. So he's supposed to get a bad name, bad rep. You see? So that people turn in that direction and root for the other forces that are now pretending to be opposed, when really they was already moving in that direction. But that's one example how they're using their system to make pretend that there's balances. They're also using individuals, like the case, the girl in Florida is supposed to be putting out information, hooray, saving the people. And, the so-called state is against her staging the appearance of this system. Nation states do this. When they see the population is questioning these efforts, they'll make the appearance. When the pedophile went to take the picture with the Pope, he was, kind of pretending that he was disapproving of the pedophile's activities. Why even take a picture? So that's a photo op, but it's not a photo op to say, hey, these guys are on the same side. In a sense, it is for people that are educated, but for other people looking at it that might be following those practices of the Church of Rome, will be maybe to think that these guys are like the Pope, so against this character. Anyway, that's all politics, but that's basically what people see. It doesn't matter sometimes what you see, but yet what others see around you, because sometimes we reap what others sow. You see this with this system they call democracy. It is a system where people are now, telling us that, the kids, if you got a kid and somebody convinces him to get a sex change, that you're out of the picture. It's now in the state control. They're going to do what they desire. Now, where does branding come in? Well, branding right now is not really what most people may think, because we don't always see it. You know, branding is not necessarily something that we see. It's not a logo. It's it's another force, you know, to compel people without them being aware. You know, for example, when you have the group, you know, that calls itself Black Lives Matter, you know, they've been branded as being anti-police, you know. Well, that's the idea. But they've been branded as being pro-black, let's say. They don't have a slogan that says, you know, anti-police, black power. Their slogan is Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's hard to think who would disagree with that. Perhaps this is not the greatest example, you know what I'm saying, but this is a force that's branded itself as one thing. You have these other forces that brand themselves as, you know, so-called liberal, so-called conservative. Yeah. But the idea now is that they flip it, just like how we talked about the pedophile. You know, when he vetoed, it was flipped. So it was branded like the pedophile was against something. And then the people that were already, because you would have thought a pedophile was going to give the military all the money. You would have thought it was a pedophile. But then you realized, wait a minute, you see? So they play that trickery, and then they have the other team come in, the ones that call themselves liberal or whatever, and act like they're against war, and they're the ones that support it. So the force of this is that the people that are behind those people, because they branded themselves as being anti-war, are now for war. Because these heads, you know, have spoken. So there's no logo needed. If you have the Black Lives Matter, it's branded itself as, you know, police reform or whatever, right? Eventually, them are the people that are, you know, supporting the police outright. Not like, you know, they're doing now in secret. Because that's who runs now. You go to the rallies and you know they're protected by the police. They're using these groups when they've realized that these groups have now a following that thinks that this is what this person or this agency or institution represents. Now, to turn around and side with the opposition. It's a way to move people in that direction. Worship and serve the beast. But there has to be distancing involved, because like Black Lives Matter has to distance itself from the police. The so-called, you know, co-founders, executives of Black Lives Matter know that it's not good for their business to take a picture smiling with the police. See, that's an obvious example. Instead, they'll take a picture, you know, confronting the police, a photo op type. So sometimes people use the word molds. I think molds to describe people that they go into a movement, but they're really in support of the opposition. They act the part, and then they disrupt it. You know, this is beyond that. We're talking about entire movements or groups that have branded themselves as being one thing, separating themselves from what it is that they've convinced others they're against. And then they flip. They flip. And it might not be so obvious how they do flip, but they do flip. You know, like sometimes you can have product placement. So, you know, the one man that was supposedly behind the group Anonymous, and he got time in Texas or whatever. When he got out and somebody took him for a ride, took him home and offered to buy a McDonald's. Well, that offering came with a catch, and that was that he was going to take a picture in front of McDonald's. The founder of the group Anonymous eating stuff in his face with the whatever bacon cheeseburger with McDonald's in the background of the arch. So this kind of stuff, you know, is like, boy, I guess he didn't realize it. You see, I'm not calling it a conspiracy. I'm saying that somebody was working against him on that one. But you know, after doing 10 years, somebody like him might, you know, go for the cheeseburger. Yeah, so this is all the time, ongoing. You can pick apart news on a daily basis and find examples of distancing. Examples where people are being taught that there's balance. You know, that there's these oppositional forces, yeah? That so, you know, you can trust, yeah? You can trust that things won't get out of hand. But everything's already out of control. You know, because Babylon has wreaked havoc on the world so they can contain the populations, and populations continue to strive against one another. All praise to the King. Ciao.